RK University's philosophy is to educate through discovery. We shape thinkers and self-learners, making knowledge an exciting journey by opening new doors and steering into new horizons. Our students are a generation of tomorrow, a timeless tribe of change makers. RK University is the only state private university accredited by NAC, UGC in Western Gujarat region and ranked 4th across the nation in Swachh Campus Ranking 2018 by MHRD, Government of India. With a beautiful 100 plus acres pollution-free and green campus with modern infrastructure, RKU is a great place to learn and grow. At RKU, learners are the nucleus surrounded by a circle of learning, nurtured by hands of knowledge. By giving them a global exposure, we allow understanding to seep through project-based learning. They get their hands dirty, assess real situations, unfold new theories in our labs, and find holistic answers to every hurdle that comes their way. RKU is among top-ranked universities of India by CII for research productivity and the only university in the region to have business school rated A grade by Business Standard. RKU has MOUs with companies like Cisco, Infosys, Oracle, Wadhwani Foundation, Red Hat, etc. and international academic collaborations with more than 20 universities across the globe. At RKU, we make the worlds meet. We craft trailblazers who shape better futures. We look forward together, standing firm on today's lessons and possibilities of tomorrow, so that the world is not our oyster, the universe is. Apply now for 50 plus programs in engineering, health sciences, management and science at RKU.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. I am thankful to RK University, Dr. Priyanshu sir, and my colleagues of SRC. They are working volunteer for the betterment of athletes and providing their services for enhancement of their performances. Today, we are going to discuss about periodization in cricketers and athletes. Moreover, it's a vast subject in itself. So in this webinar, we are looking on the main points of periodization. What is periodization? In a very simple term, it's a process in which main target is to achieve maximum performance at the appropriate time. For example, if Indian cricket team is planning for upcoming T20 World Cup, their maximum performance time is during competition. So the whole program should be designed in such a manner that an athlete will achieve their peak during desired time. Our training is occur when proper load monitoring will not happen, either during short or prolonged phases of periodization. There are mainly two main variables, intensity and volume. If you able to understand these two parameters, it was very easy to design your own training schedule or rehab program. So the main core is intensity. There are two various ways to identify intensity, and one of them is RM maximum, that is repetition maximum. For example, you are in physio with Olympic team and it's your day one in Indian camp. You are totally unfamiliar with players and coach has given you task to prepare a training schedule for whole camp. What is going to be your first initiative? Are you directly take athletes to gym or What is the appropriate weight they can lift while performing your test? These are the various questions which will come in mind when you are in such situation. As it finding one RM is high risky and prone to injury if you don't know the strength of an athlete. And the whole team in this situation is new to you. Hence, for safer side, instead of performing one RM, we will give athletes to lift a weight in which he can easily perform a repetition between 2 to 10. It is visible in this table, the conversion values. If an stage 3 athlete, which is a novice or beginner, is coming to you and he is able to perform 5 repetitions with 60 kg, then as per the conversion value, you have to multiply 60 kg with 1.11. So the 1 RM will be 66.6 kg. The same you can see for the stage 4 athletes. They are performing 3 repetition and the reconversion value of 3 repetition is 1.08. So what you can do, you will multiply the weight whichever they are lifting with that conversion value and you will get your 1 RM. That is in this case is 100 kg. Next is the training year. The training year is divided into 3 phases depending on the task. Like preparatory phase, as the name suggests, is in a phase where athletes preparing for some competition. The second phase is competitive, where the main competition is going to occur. Transition phase, where he has to go for a recovery, and again they will coming for the next phase, that is a preparation. So we will discuss each phase in detail. First, preparatory phase, where as the name suggests is in a phase where athlete is going to ready for competition, and soon after ending of this phase he or she has to compete where on whatever level recovery they are performing. So this phase is divided into two, that is a preparation, general and we will discuss each phase in detail. The general phase first is considered preparatory phase for the whole exercise. As the name suggests, is in a phase irrespective of their where athlete is going to ready for general preparatory training, and soon after ending of this phase, and intensity has to compete where the on primary purpose recovery is to prepare the athlete. So this phase is divided into sport specific training, general for the latter. So we will discuss each phase in detail. The general phase first is considered preparatory phase for the whole exercise, whereas in specific preparation, targeting is to prepare the body for adequately and for competing for the competition phase. Because the intensity is low to moderate, the athlete may experience less stress as well as there is reducing the risk of overtraining. While in competitive phase, which is further divided into two, pre-competition and competition. Pre-competition, you can say a general time when the team is traveling to the destination where he has to compete, and before competition, if they are preparing, they are practicing or doing a friendly match with the opponent, this whole duration will come under pre-competition. The competitive phase is the main competition time where they are actually competing into their related sports. The difference is in pre-competition phase, the volume of training is reduced while intensity of training is increased. Whereas during main competition phase, the intensity reaches its peak while training volume is reduced. The last phase is transition phase. The transition phase in which the period of active rest is used to recover from the competitive phase. So transition phase is mainly built to getting the recovery, you can go for the recreational activity in this phase, or just prehab, you can go for a prehab in this phase. So here we have discussed all the phases. Next, the most important terminology you have heard is the macro, meso, and micro cycle. The macro cycle refers to an extended training period, usually a training year, which cover the whole, whereas mesocycle is divided from several weeks to months. Last but not least, microcycle, which is from few days to few weeks. So if you can say a macrocycle is considering for the whole year, mesocycle few weeks to few months, and microcycle few days to few weeks. So the training program was start from microcycle. Obviously, you will start from some days. Like if some player has come to you and you have only 7 days, so that 7 days is coming under microcycle. So if the athlete is for you for 1 month and 2 months, then it's considering mesocycle. If your federation, your association has given you time for a whole year or an Olympic cycle, that is considering under macro cycle. So you can see here in tabular form, there are different phases: preparatory phase, competition phase, and transition. Again, surface is divided: general, specific, pre-competition, competition, micro, meso, and macro cycle. As we progress further, we come to know like how we can make our periodized program for microcycle and for mesocycle.
यहाँ पे बोल दो
First, we start from conditioning. In conditioning, the
hello
main
all of you.
focus
We have
was
already
on
sent
speed.
one link in your chat
So,
box.
what is speed? Speed isn't a
Kindly
time taken to move
click to
between
that
2 points.
link and it will be get
It varies
activated to
from
the
sports to
another channel.
sports, and it will sub-tab into acceleration, change of direction, maximum velocity, and speed endurance. That 2 point can be a small distance or a longer one. So, when things come in your mind to improve the speed of an athlete, there are two ways. You can train them in unloaded or resisted. In unloaded sprint, it is an important method in which athletes give their maximum effort. In resisted sprint, it's same, but you are using an external load to improve their acceleration. In broad term, if we see our training program, if it is a far from competition, as you can see in this, if it is a far from competition, you will be more generalized. More generalized, as we already discussed, it will covering the whole body. It will not specific to any sports. You are just targeting.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. I am thankful to RK University, Dr. Priyanshu sir, and my colleagues of SRC. They are working volunteer for the betterment of athletes and providing their services for enhancement of their performances. Today, we are going to discuss about periodization in cricketers and athletes. Moreover, it's a vast subject in itself. So in this webinar, we are looking on the main points of periodization. What is periodization? In a very simple term, it's a process in which Main target is to achieve maximum performance at the appropriate time. For example, if Indian cricket team is planning for upcoming T20 World Cup, their maximum performance time is during competition. So the whole program should be designed in such a manner that an athlete will achieve their peak during desired time. Our training is occur when proper load monitoring will not happen, either during short or prolonged phases of periodization. There are mainly two main variables: intensity and volume. If you able to understand these two parameters, it was very easy to design your own training schedule or rehab program. So the main core is intensity. There are two various ways to identify intensity, and one of them is RM maximum, that is repetition maximum. For example, you are in physio with Olympic team and it's your day one in Indian camp. You are totally unfamiliar with players and coach has given you task to prepare a training schedule for whole camp. What is going to be your first initiative? Are you directly take athletes to gym, or what is the appropriate weight they can lift while performing your test? These are the various questions which will come in mind when you are in such situation, as it finding one RM is high risky and prone to injury if you don't know the strength of an athlete, and the whole team in this situation is new to you. Hence, for safer side, instead of performing one RM, we will give athletes to lift a weight in which he can easily perform a repetition between 2 to 10. It is visible in this table, the conversion values. If an stage 3 athlete, which is a novice or beginner, is coming to you and he is able to perform 5 repetition with 60 kg, then as per the conversion value, you have to multiply 60 kg with 1.11. So the 1 RM will be 66.6 kg. The same you can see for the stage 4 athletes. They are performing 3 repetition and the reconversion value of 3 repetition is 1.08. So what you can do, you will multiply the weight whichever they are lifting with that conversion value and you will get your 1 RM. That is in this case is 100 kg. Next is the training year. The training year is divided into 3 phases depending on the task, like preparatory phase, as the name suggests, is in a phase where athletes preparing for some competition. The second phase is competitive, where the main competition is going to occur. Transition phase, where he has to go for a recovery, and again they will coming for the next phase, that is a preparation. So we will discuss each phase in detail. First, preparatory phase. As the name suggests, is in a phase where athlete is going to ready for competition. And soon after ending of this phase, he or she has to compete on whatever level they are performing. So this phase is divided into two, general and specific. The general phase is considering for the whole exercises irrespective of their sports. In general preparatory training, volume is high and intensity is low. The primary purpose is to prepare the athlete for more and sport-specific training for the latter phases. Whereas in specific preparation, Targeting is to prepare the body for adequately and for competing for the competition phase. Because the intensity is low to moderate, the athlete may experience less stress as well as there is reducing the risk of overtraining. While in competitive phase, which is further divided into two, pre-competition and competition. Pre-competition, you can say a general time when the team is traveling to the destination where he has to compete, and before competition, if they are preparing, they are practicing or doing a friendly match with the opponent, this whole duration will come under pre-competition. The competitive phase is the main competition time where they are actually competing into their related sports. The difference is in pre-competition phase, the volume of training is reduced while intensity of training is increased. Whereas during main competition phase, the intensity reaches its peak while training volume is reduced. The last phase is transition phase. The transition phase in which the period of active rest is used to recover from the competitive phase. So transition phase is mainly built to getting the recovery. You can go for the recreational activity in this phase, or just prehab. You can go for a prehab in this phase. So here we have discussed all the phases. Next, the most important terminology you have heard is the macro, meso, and microcycle. The macro cycle refers to an extended training period, usually a training year, which cover the whole, whereas mesocycle is divided from several weeks to months. Last but not least, microcycle, which is from few days to few weeks. So if you can say a macrocycle is considering for the whole year, mesocycle few weeks to few months, and microcycle few days to few weeks. So the training program was start from microcycle. Obviously, you will start from some days. Like if some player has come to you and you have only 7 days, so that 7 days is coming under microcycle. So if the athlete is for you for 1 month and 2 months, then it's considering mesocycle. If your federation, your association has given you time for a whole year or an Olympic cycle, that is considering under macro cycle. So you can see here in tabular form, there are different phases: preparatory phase, competition phase, and transition. Again, surface is divided: general, specific, pre-competition, competition, micro, meso, and macro cycle. As we progress further, we come to know like how we can make our periodized program for microcycle and for mesocycle. First, we start from conditioning. In conditioning, the main focus was on speed. So what is speed? Speed is in a time taken to move between 2 points. It varies from sport to sport, and it will sub-tab into acceleration, change of direction, maximum velocity, and speed endurance. That 2 point can be a small distance or a longer one. So when things come in your mind to improve the speed of an athlete, there are two ways. You can train them in unloaded or resisted. In unloaded sprint, it is an important method in which athletes give their maximum effort. In resisted sprint, the same, but you are using an external load to improve their acceleration. In broad term, if we see our training program, if it is a far from competition, as you can see in this, if it is a far from competition, you will be more generalized. More generalized, as we already discussed, it will covering the whole body. It will not specific to any sports. You are just targeting whatever the goal you want to achieve. But as soon as you're going closer to the peak, your focus, your exercises, and your training schedule will be more specific towards the goal related to sports. Here you can see in unloaded sprint, if an athlete is far from the peak, they are using short distances. Where in resisted sprint, the only change is they are giving an external load, a high resistance for training with the same shorter distance. When they reach to closer to the peak, that is near to the competition, the distance will be longer, but the resistance is also low. Now, here is the main task, how you will design your own program. In this COVID-19, the gym is not available, so the most of the players are facing such situation where they will go for training, as they are trained in such a way that they are acclimatized for the gym. But there are other variations, or you can say other methods by which you can keep them fit. So you should know how to use whatever the resources you have near you, and you can design a program which will convert the main target and the main aim to enhancing their performance. Here you can see the program structure. We'll discuss one by one. Suppose this is a training day one. He is doing on track or ground. So here is an unloaded sprint, resisted sprint, and plyometrics. So this is basically for the improvement of the speed. So they are covering plyometric portion as well as unloaded sprint and resisted sprint. So this is the overall, whatever the training and whatever improvement you want, you have to first make out at what component you want to improve. Suppose take an example, a tennis player you have and you want an improvement in their speed. So you will first assess the speed is limited by what? Whether he has a limitation in their strength or is unable to generate the power, or you will take a various fitness tests. So by that quality, you will come to know that at what time and your schedule, what are the main components you keep in your mind. So here you can see the day two they keep for the gym. So might they will experience that the not only the conditioning activity will improve the speed, but as well as doing a strength session, a power session simultaneously with that will improve their speed. So what they have done, they have divided their 4-day session, 2 days for the track, for the conditioning, and 2 days for the gym. So this is the whole schedule. First, we will discuss. Sorry. First, we'll discuss this whole schedule week by week and try to understand the terminologies, how the unloaded sprint vertical jump, and other thing will correlate. As you see here, unloaded sprint. This is an imaginary example. As we will move progress, we will take a condition and will try to design our own program. So if suppose they're going for unloaded sprint, so the repetition will 20 meter, set 3 to 4, and for the 3 weeks they keep it constant. As we move progress, we will come to know whether we have to keep 3 weeks, whether we have to keep 4 weeks, how we can decide how much set we have to take, what the distance. As we move progress, the whole doubt will be clear. The vertical jump is 2 to 4 set, having a 3 repetition of 10 kg, sled pull having a 2 to 4 set of 10 meter with a moderate load. Whereas you can see in the gym, D2 and D4, they have taken 3 exercises, squat, deadlift, and you can take your own exercise. It's just an example I have kept here. So suppose they have taken a squat jump, an athlete is performing squat jump with a 2 to 4 set, having 8 to 10 repetition. So what we will be there for week 1, 2, and 3, the repetition will be same, load will be same, and for the second and third week, the set will increase. As we move progress further, we will come to know the reasoning behind it, and we will design our program according to the individual. This table is make you familiar with the terminologies. As we have discussed before, there are 3 phases: preparatory, competitive, and transition phase. So if you are in the preparatory phase, so general preparation, you have taken 2 days and specific preparation 3 days. So total is 5 days of session. So what you will do in general phase, you will going for low intensity, having in a low volume, whereas in specific, the intensity will be low, but the volume is high. So how is it like? Let understand it is in a simple term. So if intensity is low to moderate, like 50% to 80% or 20 to 30%, intensity is low, you are able to perform more repetition. When intensity is high, you are able to perform less repetition. Let's try to understand on a different way. In general preparation phase, an athletes come to you when they have plenty of time. If suppose the competition phase is in a July, they come to you before 2 to 3 months. So you have to train before 2 months to the competition. So it's totally, if you are training them for 4 to 5 months, it's in a huge duration. And if you go from day one for the high intensity, there is a high chances that during competition phase, that athlete will come occur with some injury. So what's the standard form is during preparation phase, you keep your intensity low to moderate, and as we progress, you have to increase your intensity. As intensity will increase, the volume will reduce. You can see in competition phase is further divided into two: pre-competition and competition. They have taken 3 days per week for preparation, and for competition is 2 to 3 days. So it's very like again it's very upon depend on sports to sports. If you see the example of cricket, if it is in a 4-day game, then you will get a 2-day between rest for the next match. So you have that 2 days for training. If it is in a say boxing or a sports like judo, you have one bout, and if you won, you have a rest for 1 day or 2 day, and then the next bout will be there. Or might it chance and you will lose the match on the same day. The rest of time will come under transition phase. So the pre-competition phase, if you take 3 days per week, the intensity will be high. As we progress from pre-competition to competition phase, so during the competition phase, you have to keep your intensity high and volume low. Means what? The weight they are lifting should be maximum of their strength, and the volume means the repetition will be low and the set will be low. During transition phase, it's just for a recreational. They're just familiar with the new exercises, learning the new techniques. So the load will be low, volume will be low. So it's totally recovering from the competition phase. It might happen during the next day of the competition till again the next schedule will not come. What happened in different sports? If you can see the calendar of the Olympic, the individual sports have different competitions. Some are open competitions and some are specifically designed by that federation. So athletes are free for compete in different levels. So here the main task is come to ask with the athletes in which competition or in which time he is going or he's planning for compete. So it's very easy for you guys to decide which is the preparatory phase, which is the competition phase, and which is the transition phase for you. Maybe sometime occur the transition phase will be for 4 to 5 days. So there is no standard, or you can't give a one program for him for the whole year. You have to keep monitoring, you have to keep changing. There are some situations that are just like happen in COVID-19. If you have make a plan of the whole year, but during this time the gym is not available, the equipment is not available, so what you have to do? You have to again change your plan. So always design your program in microcycle or mesocycle. So we can see how we will make strength progress. Its specificity. At what exercise you want your athlete to perform their best. So the exercises, whatever you are including, should be sport specific, and the range it's covering will be as per the requirement of the sports. If you are going for a low repetition, you are generating that muscle, the low endurance. It means suppose you can take, if some player having a good batting skill, able to wait till 50 runs, 80 runs, 100 runs. So that time they are running between the wicket was high. Means what? They are running frequently. So you have to train them for as many as run they can run without a fatigue. Take an example. If they are running after a shot and they have covered 3 runs, on the next ball they have again played for a shot and they again run twice. So there is a high chances that the batsman will feel some shortness of breath, fatigue. So why this happen? maybe their endurance is low, or the local muscle which is working there had not trained in such a way that they can run more. So our target is to see in which area we want improvement and what we can do for them. Here we can take an example of volleyball. So now we are going more deeper in periodization. Now we are focusing on making a training program for a week. If you come to know how to make a program for a week, it was very easy to move further and design for a month. Again, it's depend on the two types, whether it's in season or off season. Suppose it's an in season where they have to compete for the match. And we can take an example. If volleyball match is on Sunday and practicing is on Tuesday and Friday, and you have a strength session on Thursday. So what you have one session or maximum two sessions before that. In these two sessions, you have to design in which fitness component you are going to work. There are various components you can see: accelerations, plyometric, power, strength, endurance, hypertrophy. So what will be your target? What do you want to achieve in these 2 days? Just take this. So if Tuesday is your practice and Wednesday, Thursday coach has given to you, so you will targeting that your whole body will be covered, and you want your each component of the training should be fulfill the requirement of the sports. So on Wednesday you have taken lower body, on Thursday you have taken upper body. You are covering power, you are covering plyometrics, you are covering speed. So whatever the requirement of that sports, you are trying to cover that in your training. So if we see for an off season, we are taking an example of cricket. So here you can see the fitness test, yo-yo 20-meter, 40-meter, and a 3 pull-up, reset and reach. So for designing an any program, the foremost thing is to know what is the fitness condition of that athlete, whether they are fit, unfit, and if they are fit, what level they have achieved till now. So if we take the example here in 2019-2020, the same athlete in 2019 able to perform 40.5 level in yo-yo intermediate level test, and in 2020 16.1. So there is progression. He had worked for improving their yo-yo test. Here you can see simultaneously in pull-up in 2019 is able to perform 10 pull-up, where in 2020 it's 6. Maybe due to COVID-19 he is unable to go for gym, so their strength is decreased, or he's focused more on conditioning. You can rule out various ways, various theories you can create, but now what's our task? Our main task is to improve their strength. He is already improving their conditioning, but we have to improve their strength. So the program, strength program, should be focusing to improve their pull-up. So here you can see we had included shoulder press, pull-up, push-up. This three IYT, this three is totally targeting the 4 exercises, 1, 2, 3, 4 exercises out of 6. So almost 60% to 70% is targeting to their strength. The rest, you can see hamstring stretch. In 2019, is the result is negative. Some tightness will be there. Into 20, we have given them a telefitness, so they can perform their own. So by keeping this mind that he has a history and there's a might chances in this COVID phase, if he's unable to perform or he is unable to do flexibility, there's a chances during the competition phase there's injury. So we are not seeing just in a fitness, we are correlating it with injury perspective as well. That's why we have included hamstring stretch in our schedule. So this all thing will come in back of your mind when you're designing a program, so that it will be very easy for you guys to decide which exercise you can keep and which you can exclude. Here for a conditioning phase, you can see a sprint session. A sprint session for improving their yo-yo. A runner 3 for improving their running between the wicket and agility. Here if they have achieved a 16.1 and you want more improvement, so what you can do, you will increase the distance whatever they are covering during that phase. So by keeping all this mind, you will pick your exercises, you pick up your sats, repetition, intensity, and rest period. We'll discuss about sat, repetition, intensity. We will move further. Now we are only till now we have discussed how you will pick the exercises. What things should come in your mind when you're picking up the exercise? So progression model is something like that. When you are accumulation phase, the set you have to increase and the load you will maintain. So you have seen like the set will be 3, 4, arranging between 3 to 5. So in accumulation phase, you will find the set will be more and load will be maintained. You are taking the same load, whether it's 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. So that's an accumulation phase. The repetition will be higher because the load is same. If they train for 1 week, 2 week, they're getting the more strength, but the repetition they are performing will going to be increased. And it's mostly emphasizes for what? Hypertrophy. As we compare it with the intensification phase, you can see here the sats are maintained, but the load are increased. Whereas in accumulation phase, what happened? The sats are increased where load will be maintained. Why like this? Because what happened, you can see an accumulation phase is a pre-competition phase. An intensification phase is a competition phase where you have to take an athlete on a peak and he has to lift a heavy weight. So it's for improving their neural efficiency, maintaining their muscle mass, and the repetition range will be low. As the load will be high, repetition will be low. In realization phase, the SAT is decreased, repetition is decreased, and the load is increased. So you can say a realization phase is a phase where you want a peak maximal strength. You can say it's in a main competition phase. Suppose take an example like before an IPL, an athlete say to you, I have to do a gym. So at that time, you are not taking your schedule, your gym timing for an hour. It will make them a fatigue. So what we will do? We will try to finish your exercises in 10 to 15 minutes. In this 10 to 15 minutes, you will think what are the main exercises which is going to useful to that athlete for muscle activation and for transferring in performance. So at that time, you can't go for an endurance or for a prolonged schedule. You have to limit your timing with an high load and low repetition. Next, you can see a strength cycle of 18 weeks. Now, slowly, you are progressing toward mesocycle. Microcycle you have finished. You know how to make a training for a week. Now, if you have a more time, you have a target for 18 weeks, 14 weeks, 16 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, then how will you evaluate the player? How will you design your program? So we can take a simple example. Here I have considered only one exercise. In one exercise, you will find so much of values. So if I can take more exercises, so it will be more complicated for you guys to understand and for me also to make you understand. So here I have taken only one exercise, that is front squat. In mesocycle 1, that is an accumulation phase. Here what the set is 3, repetition 8 to 10 and load 120. So this is just an example. We will try to correlate it with every phase. If you're designing mesocycle 1, how will you progress to mesocycle 2? In intensification phase, what happened? You can see here clearly, they are limiting their repetition, but the load has increased. And in realization phase, again, the sets are low, but the load has increased. We'll understand it more further. The next slide. See here, I have taken the same example. In above, you can see the mesocycle 1 of accumulation, intensification, and realization, and in below, mesocycle 2. In mesocycle 1, if they have given you target for the 3 weeks, you have to design a program for 3 weeks. An athlete is with you for the 3 weeks. So what we will do? In first week is your accumulation phase where you have keep your load same 120, 120, 120 kg. In mesocycle 1 intensification phase, you are increasing their load while you are keeping the set same, repetition same. As the phase come, when you are in the main competition, or you can say a realization phase, the weight you are lifting during intensification and the progression was suppose 2.5 kg. Here it come 5 kg per week. But to compensate for it, you can see the set are continuously decreasing. In week 1 it was 3, in week 2 it was 2, and week 3 it was 1. Same, the repetition is also decreasing. So it is in a phase where we don't want our training for an athlete. We have less time. We have to train him with an high load. In mesocycle 2, you can see the same thing. In first, second, third week, it was 120, 120, 120. So what you will do for your next 3 weeks? So it will be increased weight of 5 kg. In intensification, same 2.5 kg, and 3 realization phase 5 kg. Now in the next slide, we will compare the whole progression. Here you can see in mesocycle first, accumulation phase. Now we are comparing both 1 and mesocycle 2. So the progression you come to know, like in first 3 weeks, how we will progress, and after 3 weeks If you have more time and the athletes remain in accumulation phase only, then how will you progress? So in the first 3 weeks, they had keep load same, repetition same, sat same. Afterwards, what you will do, you will keep your sat same, but for the 2 weeks, you try to minimize the repetition and then again going for increment as the weight increase. In intensification phase, there is a continuously progression in the weight from 1 week to week 6. In realization phase, the SAT is continuously decreasing in week 1 to 3 and 4, 5, 6. So if you see for a mesocycle accumulation phase, if you are going for 3 weeks and mesocycle 2, 3 weeks, so total 6 weeks. So 6 weeks for accumulation, 6 for intensification, 6 for realization. So it's total 18 week of program which you have designed here by keeping fitness of player in your mind. So if we see in these two terminologies only, like in the correlation of SAT and repetition, in mesocycle 1, when you have started your training, and next you can see in mesocycle 6, where you end your training. So when you had started your training, the SAT was high, the repetition was high, and when you reached toward the competition phase, the SAT was low and the repetition range was low. So it's from, you can understand from this is the summary of the previous table. Now the main thing is load monitoring. Load monitoring is for, you can say it's same as evaluating your program. So the program you have made, whether fulfilling its condition or not. By your program, there is chances that athlete may feel injury, may feel our stress. So how you going to monitor it? So load monitoring is made for that only, that in case in previous slide the question has come in your mind, you are doing a weight progression, you are going for load increment. So what's the appropriate load we can give him and how we can make progress? So for monitoring that only, you need load monitoring. By this, you can easily come to know the weight you have increased during your training time was appropriate or not. So there are two types of monitoring, first internal and external. Here we are going to discuss the most common two, that's RP, GPS. Bowling workload is during the net session. How much ball he has delivered, you have to write it down during the competition, how much he has run. During competition phase, it's very easy, like if depending on the sports, like if he's playing for a 1 day for the 10 hour, he's going to bowl. But the main aim is during the net session, during practice session, how much ball he's bowling. So we are not going in that, we're limiting ourselves to our fitness. How we will monitor the load which you are giving during the net session, and you are taking them for load monitoring. So these two things will come under your minds. External load, That is the total distance he have covered, number of sprints, and the weight he has lifted. These all are the external measures you can measure. Internal by heart rate, rate of positive oxidation, and by blood lactate concentration. So if we see what is the acute and chronic workload. Acute workload is whatever he has done under 7 days, and suppose the whole training is for your 28 days. So your whole camp of 28 days will be the chronic. The initially 7 days is coming under your acute, and the whole 28 days will be your chronic. So suppose in 7 days you have taken your fitness test, you have taken an endurance, all these things has covered a 30 kilometer. An athlete have perform an activity in which he has to run for a 30 kilometer in activity, where the rest of your days you're designing your program in such a way that he has covered 28.5 kilometer. So you will divide that acute with chronic, and you will come to know that the ratio is 1.05. So what the article, what the researchers are saying, a ratio more than 1.5, there is a high chances of injury, that is 2 to 4 times in subsequent 7 days. So next 7 days, whatever you're training, if the ratio is more than 1.5, there's a high chances the athlete got injured. So try to understand here. So if this is your preparatory phase, or say pre-competition phase, where you have gone for high intensity training, your load was high and you are not monitoring it. So what happened? The next 7 days and during the main competition time, there's a chances the athlete got injured. So you have to keep monitor. Previously what happened? You have designed one program, and now what you are doing? You are evaluating your program, that whether it's right or not. If a ratio is less than zero point 0.8, means what? Its fitness level is low. The optimal ratio is zero point 0.8 to 1.3. So before that we have taken an example. This example is for conditioning. They have covered the distance, that's GPS. And now we have taken the strength, what that program we have designed before, that accumulation phase is intensification realization phase, that program is appropriate or not. So here you can see in the first mesocycle phase, if the load is 120, 120, 120 for the 3 weeks, and for the 4th week is 125. So what we will do for the whole month, we will add it, and the value is 605. And for the first week, initial 7 days, it was 120 kg. We will divide it, and the ratio we got is 0.2. So what come under in this phase is the ratio is very low. You can see from it, it should be between 0.8 to 1.3, but it's 0.2. So whether it's right or wrong, now you have to correlate it at what phase you are making him trend. It's an accumulation phase. It's the initial phase when athletes are coming to you. So at that time, your weight, your load will be low, and your repetition will be high. So obviously at that time, the ratio is going to be low. So if you are progressing with the same weight throughout the accumulation phase, or you can say preparatory phase and the competition phase, then there is a high chances he will got injured. But what happening in the next phase? Continuously the weight is going to be increased, and that increment will make a difference in that ratio and make that player fit. So this is the whole things you have to keep in your mind when you're designing your program, when you're designing any UF rehab. I hope this webinar somewhat informative for you. And again, I'm thankful to Ark University, Priyanshu sir, for giving such a good platform to us to share our knowledge. And last, you will get a feedback form as well. You can revert it back so that we come to know at what areas we have to focus and what are the best possibilities we can do for next webinar and to make it more informative. Thank you.